Sleepyfoot actually comes from my cat. There would be times when I'm like making music or on the computer, and then she comes by and she kind of like, you know, saunters in, and you know, her face is just sleepy. And you know, I say hello Sleepy because of her face, and then she has these cute little paws and a foot, you know. So I say, hey Sleepyfoot, and then her tail, because she's happy to see me, is like this little like question mark. So I said, hey Sleepyfoot, that would be really interesting. And it's funny because I actually thought of the name, and I said I was going to sleep on it because I wasn't sure if I was going to keep the name, because before that my artist name was Miss Manon. And I thought to myself, well, when I'm like 41, do I really want to be Miss Manon? You know, I was like, let me see if I want something else that's going to stick, because knowing me, it's like, my name Manon, you know, as much as I love it, it's like, I'm like, no, that's too plain, you know, I have to jazz it up a little bit. So the day, as I was thinking about the name, contemplating on it, she got lost. During the time she was lost, I said, oh my gosh, like if I ever find her, I'm definitely gonna keep that name. And she popped up. She popped up after I said, maybe if I take a nap, I'll dream about her. I'll dream about where she is, and maybe I'll find her. And then she just happened to pop up. That's the story of how Sleepyfoot became Sleepyfoot me. Synesthesia is the ability to see sounds. That's basically what it is. Many artists have talked about it. One of my favorite artists is Daedalus. I've met him a few times, and I asked him, like, hey, do you see sounds when you produce music? And he said, yeah, sometimes I do. I know Pharrell does. I know Skrillex does. A lot of musicians have that correlation, or just are musicians but who also paint on the side as well. Like I had no idea Tony Bennett is a painter, or Marilyn Manson is also, you know, like just different people. But seeing the images, I guess for me they're kind of moving images, and I think that's a struggle for me, because I guess what would make sense for me would be to create a film off of what I see if the images are moving as sound moves when you listen to it, not a fixed image or a fixed painting. So it's kind of like I'm painting a snapshot of what I'm seeing. I was very artistic. I loved drawing, you know. Painting didn't really come so early. It was more so drawing, coloring. Also like with music too, like kind of just like taping things off the radio, and like editing and cutting on tapes and having to do that thing. I don't know if you remember tapes, like having to stick the pencil, like when it gets like stuck. That was like a big thing for me. My first experience with synesthesia, as I am a synesthetic artist, came at about like 5 years old. And I basically was listening to Michael Jackson on the radio. I think it was Billie Jean that came on, and it was like 95.5 PLJ, and even though they don't play the same music now, like that's what was on. And I remember like having visuals for the first time, and I was just like, wow, like what is this, you know? I didn't understand it, didn't question it, just kept moving on in my life. And then again, when I was like 12, 13, I realized like this was like a thing for me, but still didn't know what it was. It wasn't until like a bit later on, like maybe like 10 years later, like after college and really listening to experimental music, that I began to see like this was a correlation and this was something that happened. And when other musicians and artists began talking about that as well, that's when I realized like, hey, like I have synesthesia, this is what I do. It wasn't until my journey of finding myself, like about like, I would say like maybe 4 years ago, that I realized who I was as an artist and the type of direction I wanted to take as an artist. Because before that I just made like these like shapes, and I had no idea what these cubist, you know, like paintings, what they were, you know. I was just like, okay, I just make shapes, that's what I do. And I think that a struggle for a lot of artists is that we try to be something that we're not when we're starting out, like painting in ways that aren't really representative of ourselves. And once I came to realize like this is who I am and that's just what I do, my artistic direction just began to change. So that's when I got back into painting, and then I got back into making music, and I made that correlation of, hey, like as an artist and musician, they speak to each other, right? The art and the music. And I realized that my art is a representation of what I see when I listen to music. So that's how I began my artistic journey. First thing, honestly, aromatherapy. Lighting is also important. I probably start out listening to music first and just like kind of getting lost in music, and then just thinking about what I visualize and what I see when listening to different types of music. Sometimes I'll have a song stuck in my head or a tune or a melody, and then they would just be like this like image of like, you know, dots and like stripes and things. And then I would put my paints down on, you know, palette paper, get my palette knife ready, my Turk ready, and just put everything together. Another thing I do too a lot is actually kind of map out, like with this series, I actually kind of mapped out a little bit of visualization or a template of what I saw first, and then after that rendered it to a larger size. I am somebody, I like to have a flow. So for me, idealistically, coming home and just trying to squeeze 30 minutes of painting is just not my thing. So weekends or like other days off that I have, I will paint, and I will do that for a long period of time, like maybe like 7 hours together, or at least 5, I would say, at a time, just to kind of get lost in, you know, and not think so hard as I'm painting. Sometimes I'm thinking maybe too much about color or composition, and I just need to do it. I think for an artist, kind of doing art and also doing a little bit of music and also working during the day too, time management does become like a big thing. I'm really interested in actually exploring something new for my new series. I want to explore repetition in music. And when I mean music, I mean music that I create, and also a mashup of different sounds in nature, and also off of media as well. I think that we're living in a time where we hear a lot of repetitive things on the news, and I do want to incorporate that because we're just in that time. And being in this time, the present day, I do want to explore my relationship artistically to what I'm hearing on a daily basis. I think that it's important to kind of have a mix of different opportunities as they come by. It's like, I know that artists a lot, we think about profit all the time, like how we're gonna profit or make a living off of our art. And of course, like, yeah, we think about it and that's great, but it's also really important to just take some opportunities to give back. I mean, in particular with Sing for Hope, that was a great opportunity, you know, to have my piano, you know, like installed out in, you know, public for about like 3 weeks, you know, to a month, and then it goes to a school. I think as artists, we do want to help out each other, but I have been in a few situations where I've met people, you know, in the industry, and I've attended different openings, and I kind of, I'm not sure if maybe some of the people I've been around, but a part of me kind of feels like I wish a little bit that I lived in a world where I could just be able to say, hey, my name is Manon, nice to meet you, and that's kind of good enough. In my experience, I feel like it's been, okay, like, hey, your name is Manon, so give me a rundown of your resume, like right up front, you know? And I think that it's important for us as artists, and also curators, and also collectors and investors, to really keep sight in what the meaning of artist is, you know, to like whoever, to any individual, just what is the meaning of an artist and being an artist, and to keep that in mind, that we're a community. We're a community that's not the status quo, and it's important for us to work together, embrace each other, and provide opportunities for everyone. And I get it. I get the whole you have to sell yourself. I totally get that. Marketing, but at the end of the day, we are people, you know, and I think that it's important for us to remember that. We're people with feelings, we're people with different interests, and everybody does have something to offer. You know, whether or not they have Title A or Title B, you know, it's important that I feel as, you know, as a community, I mean, and not even just in the artistic industry, but in general. I think that we're seeing that during this time. You know, there's a lot of labeling, there's a lot of discrimination, there's just a lot of different things going on, and I think that for the better of humanity, in a way, like, it's important for us to just keep that in mind.
Born in Brooklyn. Yeah, before it was Brooklyn. It was nice until the early to mid 70s when the neighborhood started changing.